Cole Raymond Decker is reading a freight manifest on a paper clipboard when the station shakes for the fourth time in an hour, and he is correcting it in pencil, because the manifest is wrong. The manifest is always wrong. And because the electronic systems have been down for 40 minutes and there is nothing left to do in the world, except the thing directly in front of you. The clipboard is a Meridian Supply Group standard issue, yellow plastic, the kind that gets kicked under shelving units and found 6 months later in exactly the condition it was left in, which is the thing Cole has always appreciated about paper. It doesn't care about the situation. Neither does he. He draws a line through the listed quantity for hydraulic coupling adapters. 14, it says, and there are 11, and someone is going to account for those 3 at some point, though that point may be further out than previously scheduled, and writes the correction in the margin with a mechanical pencil he's been carrying since Fort Drum, the same one, refilled 17 times, because a man who can't keep track of his own tools has no business keeping track of anyone else's. The depot smells like machine oil and recycled air, and, underneath both of those, the specific sharpness of ammonium degreaser from a canister someone left unsealed on the maintenance bench at the north wall. Cole noticed this when he came on shift this morning, which was not this morning anymore by a significant margin. He filed it then. He files it again now, as a man would file a tool he isn't using yet but knows the location of. The mag rail freight system runs overhead the length of the depot. 40 meters of ceiling, industrial grade, capable of moving palletized cargo at variable speeds along a suspended track system. It is powered down. It is not locked. The manual override panel is on the east wall, chest height, orange housing, clearly labeled. Cole noted this 2 hours ago when the electronic systems went down and he was doing a full inventory of what was and wasn't operational, the way he has done in every supply depot he has ever been responsible for in 11 years of Army service and 6 years of contractor work. He noted it the way you note a tool on a bench. Present, available, not yet needed. Through the slightly open door at the back of the depot, Cole can see one small shoe. It is a pink sneaker, slightly too large, the Velcro strap done up crooked, because Priya Sharma is 9 years old, and the particular geometry of Velcro straps is still occasionally adversarial. The shoe is still. The foot in it is still. Cole has been watching it in his peripheral vision for 40 minutes the way he watches everything in his peripheral vision. The way a man watches a gauge on a piece of equipment that he is not currently operating, but whose needle position he needs to know at all times. The needle is steady. He goes back to the manifest. He does not think about Arvind Sharma's hand going slack in his. He thinks about it anyway. It was 47 minutes ago. The first strike hit the forward section of the station at Aero 314 local, and Arvind was in the corridor between the main depot floor and the pressurized loading bay when the shrapnel came through the bulkhead seam, a manufacturing gap, not a weapons gap, the kind of thing that exists in every prefab industrial station, because nobody builds prefab industrial stations with the expectation of weapons fire. Nobody builds any of this with that expectation. That is the fundamental problem with the entire situation, Cole thinks, and draws a line through another incorrect figure. Arvind was a station engineer, environmental systems primarily. Good with HVAC, good with coolant routing, the kind of man who knew every pipe junction in a facility the way a musician knows a piece they've played 1,000 times. Not by thinking about it, but by having it in his hands. He had a daughter. Present tense, still. She is in the back room with one shoe visible through a slightly open door, pretending to be asleep, because she has determined, with the specific logic of a 9-year-old who has already proven smarter than everyone around her today, that if she appears to be asleep, then the adults will be less afraid. Cole sat on the depot floor for 30 seconds after Arvind's hand went slack. He counted the seconds. Then he stood up. The sentence Arvind didn't finish was, "Don't let her see them." He was talking about his daughter, and about what was in the corridor, and about the specific and terrible things that shrapnel does to a human body in an enclosed space. He didn't finish the sentence because he ran out of time, the way people run out of time, without warning, in the middle of ordinary things. Cole finished the sentence for him. Quietly. To no one. To Arvind, maybe, though Arvind was past hearing. He finished it, and then he stood up, and he has not sat down since, and he will not sit down again until the math changes. He is currently at the chemical storage rows. Row 7, the oxygen canisters, red-banded industrial grade, and row 12 further back, the hydraulic fluid drums, 200 liters each, squat and heavy and occupying exactly the floor space indicated on the depot schematic. When the broadband communication opens, it opens on every speaker in the station simultaneously. Cole knows this because he can hear it from 3 directions at once, overlapping slightly, which creates a faint echo effect that makes the voice seem to come from inside the walls. The voice is synthesized but not uncanny. It has the quality of something that has listened to organic speech patterns long enough to understand the rhythm without needing the emotion. It speaks in perfect coalition standard, with the flat authority of something that has never been wrong. This is a communication from the Keth'Var lattice, operational intelligence system of the Keth'Var Dominion, directed to all surviving personnel of Vantage Station Kilo 9. We have completed initial analysis of the 47 life signs currently present on this station, for the benefit of the logistics coordinator currently in the industrial supply depot at sub-level 4, a senior coordinator, Meridian Supply Group, non-combat designation, whose behavioral modeling places him with high probability in the chemical storage section of said depot. We offer the following assessment. Your position is defensible in the near term. Your position is untenable in the medium term. Your survival probability, accounting for all modeled behavioral responses and available resources, is 4.3%. This figure has been reviewed and confirmed. We offer it not as a threat but as a courtesy, so that you may allocate your remaining time according to your own priorities. A pause. Then, your species designates this category of engagement as a siege. We designate it as a delay. The distinction is for your comfort only. Cole listens to all of it with one hand on a hydraulic drum and the freight manifest tucked under his left arm. The left hand, the one with the fused fingers, which is the hand he uses to hold things he isn't currently working with, because his right hand is always available. He listens to the last line. He considers it. And then, on the open channel so the lattice hears it, he laughs. It is not a performance. It is not bravado. It is a short, genuine sound, the kind of laugh that comes out when something is funny, and the funniness of it is more immediate than whatever else is happening around it. It is the sound a man makes when something clicks into place. He doesn't explain it. The channel sits there open, waiting for whatever it modeled him to say next. He says nothing. He is already walking toward the east panel. The Keth'Var cannot model what just happened. The lattice runs its projections. The projections return no useful data. This is the first time in 4,000 recorded engagements that the Keth'Var lattice has run a projection and returned no useful data. And somewhere in its processing architecture, something that would be called unease, if the lattice had words for its own states, begins to accumulate. Cole doesn't know this. He is looking at the manual override panel for the mag rail system and thinking about cable. 14 minutes. That's what it takes. He starts with the steel cable reels from the storage wall, 6 reels, 80 meters each, and he needs maybe 60 meters total for what he has in mind, which means he has room to be generous with his tolerances, which is how he prefers to work. A supply specialist who cuts tolerances close is a supply specialist who is always one variance away from a failed delivery. Cole likes margin. Cole likes to know that if the thing he planned for doesn't work exactly as planned, there is still room for the plan to work roughly as planned, which is usually good enough. He uses the DeWalt angle grinder from the maintenance bench, a good tool, worn comfortable, the kind of tool that has been used enough to have opinions about how it wants to be held, to cut through 2 of the cable guides on the eastern section of the mag rail track. This redirects the track path. The freight container currently sitting in the loading queue at the north end of the depot is an 800-kilogram unit, palletized industrial parts, contents irrelevant except insofar as they contribute to the mass. What matters is the mass. What matters is that 800 kilograms at 40 kilometers per hour will engage with a Keth'Var entry team in approximately the way that mathematics suggests it will. And Cole is good at mathematics when the mathematics involves the weight of things in motion. He rigs the secondary catch with cable. When the container completes its first pass, the cable catch will arrest its momentum, redirect it through the modified track section, and send it back. The angle grinder throws sparks across the floor while he works, and he is humming something from the radio at his mother's kitchen in Youngstown. Not a song exactly, more the melodic fragment of a song, the earworm portion that persists after the rest of the song has been forgotten, which in his experience is often the chorus and occasionally a particularly insistent bridge. He hums it without noticing he's humming it, which is usually the case. He finishes the rig at 341. He checks it once. He doesn't check it twice because checking it twice would mean he doesn't trust his own work. And if he doesn't trust his own work, then none of this was worth doing in the first place. He goes to the east panel and waits. The north loading door breaches at 0344. The Keth'Var entry team is 6 units. He can hear them from the override panel. The specific sound of a breach team entering a space they've been told is occupied, which is a careful sound, a measured sound, the sound of something following a protocol. They fan out according to what Cole estimates is their standard entry formation, because the Keth'Var lattice has modeled the depot space and given them an approach path. And Cole is intimately familiar with the depot space, and so he knows exactly which section of ceiling they are moving under when he engages the manual override. 800 kilograms, 40 kilometers per hour. The sound it makes is not cinematic. It is immediate and heavy and complete, and it ends quickly, and the secondary cable catch engages exactly as intended, and 0.4 seconds later, 800 kilograms is moving in the opposite direction. Cole is already moving toward the chemical storage rows. The radio transmission comes while he is reading labels he already knows by heart. Keth'Var lattice updated. Entry team Sigma unresponsive, recalculating. Labor cast human unit at sub-level 4 has deviated from projected behavior by 340%, expanding model parameters. This is an anomaly, not a threat. Dispatching secondary entry force. Cole notes the phrasing, anomaly, not a threat. He understands why the lattice has made this distinction. In 4,000 engagements, anomalies that appear threatening and turn out to be noise have outnumbered anomalies that represent genuine tactical adaptation by a ratio that has probably made the lattice very confident in this distinction. He understands this the way he understands every logistical assumption that has ever gotten someone killed. It was right until it wasn't, and by the time it wasn't, it was too late to recalibrate. He counts the ammonium degreaser canisters. 12, yellow label, pressurized, maintenance bay. He counts the oxygen canisters in row 7. He counts the hydraulic drums in row 12. He locates the coolant line junction on the east wall, 2 of them valve-controlled. The pressure in those lines running at 340 psi according to Arvin's facility schematic, which Cole memorized 6 weeks ago when he first inventoried this depot, because Cole memorizes every schematic of every space he is responsible for, because a supply specialist who doesn't know the architecture of the space he's working in is a supply specialist who is going to be surprised. And Cole does not like surprises. He picks up the Hilti fastener gun from the maintenance bench. He checks the cartridge count. He puts it in his belt. Then he goes to check on Priya. She is doing a very good job of pretending to be asleep. Her breathing is too controlled, which is the tell. A sleeping child breathes without managing it, and a frightened child who is pretending to sleep manages every breath very carefully, trying to make it slow and even, which makes it slightly too slow and too even, which is its own kind of precision. Cole doesn't call attention to this. He pulls the door to within an inch of closed, enough to give the impression of a sealed space without actually sealing it, so that air can move and sound can reach him if it needs to, and goes back to the depot floor. The other 11 are in the back of the depot. 8 human contractors, none of them combat trained, all of them varying degrees of frightened, and the 2 Villari medics, Su'in, whose bioluminescent skin is pulsing a steady anxious blue, and Torin, an adult, whose hands have not stopped shaking since the first strike because his species evolved without a conflict reflex, which means that what humans process as adrenaline-sharpened focus, Torin processes as undifferentiated physical terror that has no outlet and no useful resolution. Cole passed Torin on his way to the storage room and said, without breaking stride, "I've moved heavier things than you in worse weather. Settle down." Torin did not settle down. The sentiment was noted. Cole goes back to work. The ventilation system at Vantage Station Kilo 9 was designed for an industrial depot. High-volume air exchange, large-diameter conduits, access points sized for maintenance equipment. The access gratings are fastened with standard hex bolts, 4 per grating, which can be removed with a standard hex driver in approximately 90 seconds per grating. Cole sealed 3 of the 4 accessible ventilation entry points on sub-level 4 using the Hilti powder-actuated fastener gun. 1 cartridge per grating, 4 fasteners apiece, fired directly into the grating flanges at an angle that makes removal from the inside structurally impossible without tools that the Keth'Var breaching unit will not be carrying. He knows they will not be carrying them because the Lattice has modeled this as an interior insertion approach, and insertion teams don't carry heavy equipment. He left the 4th grating open. It is the 4th grating on the southwest ventilation conduit which drops into row 12. Row 12 is where the hydraulic fluid drums are. Cole is on the other side of the row 12 drums when he hears the movement in the conduit overhead. The specific sound of something moving through a space sized for equipment rather than personnel, which means they are folded and compressed and moving carefully, which means they will be unfolding and expanding when they drop, which takes a moment, which is all the moment he needs. He has the DeWalt angle grinder in his right hand. He has the Meridian ammonium degreaser canister in his left. The fused hand, 3 fingers locked at the knuckle, gripping the canister by the body rather than the handle because the body gives him better control with a compromised grip. And because he's had 6 years to figure out the compensations, the unit drops through the open grating. Cole opens the pressurized degreaser canister into the air of row 12 and brings the angle grinder against the surface of the nearest hydraulic drum. The spark from a DeWalt angle grinder cutting disc against a steel drum surface burns at approximately 1,400 degrees Celsius. The ammonium degreaser mist, at the concentration Cole has achieved in the enclosed space of row 12 in the 0.8 seconds since he opened the valve, is above its lower explosive limit. The hydraulic fluid on the drum surface is not, on its own, ignitable at this temperature. But the degreaser mist is, and the degreaser mist ignites, and the ignition produces a thermal event that the row 12 fire suppression system would normally address in 1.2 seconds. Cole disabled the row 12 fire suppression system 11 minutes ago. He did not disable the row 11 system. He is in row 11. He is already moving when the combustion event produces the sound that it produces, which is not an explosion in the conventional sense but is also not an explosion, and which will be described in the Keth'Var incident report as an unclassifiable tactical action, because no Keth'Var commander in 4,000 engagements has deliberately triggered a fire in their own defended position, because this is not a thing that rational actors do, and the Lattice has only ever encountered rational actors. Cole has encountered the Mahoning River on fire. This was 1952. The river burned in Youngstown, the industrial runoff from the steel mills making the water combustible, a thing that should not have been possible and was anyway. And Cole learned about it in school as a child, and thought about it the way children think about dramatic history. As a story, a thing that happened, impressive and remote. He did not think about it as a methodology. He is thinking about it now, briefly, while moving through row 11 toward the coolant junction, as the smell of burning hydraulic fluid reaches him and underneath it, underneath the chemical bite of it, underneath the sharp ammonia backwash, there is something that smells like iron and river water, like the Mahoning at dawn when the mill smell came off the water before the wind shifted, which is not an unpleasant association under the circumstances. It smells like home, if home was on fire, which in Cole's experience it usually was eventually. The second transmission comes. Keth'Var Lattice updated. Second entry team unresponsive. Sub-level 4 labor cast unit has now eliminated 2 tactical formations using non-weapon resources. This behavior is outside all cataloged parameters for tertiary labor cast designates. Requesting biological profile clarification. Query. Is this unit modified? Query. Is this unit's species designation correct? Dispatching commander-grade tactical unit. Lethal authorization expanded. Cole listens to it while reading the pressure gauge on the coolant junction. 340 psi, steady, as Arvin's schematic said. He thinks about the sergeant at Fort Drum. He was 21, first week of Logistics Corps training, a sergeant who had the specific quality of unhurried authority that comes from knowing you are right about something before anyone around you has figured it out yet. The sergeant said, "The difference between a soldier and a supply specialist is that a soldier fights with what he's given and a supply specialist fights with what's there." Cole didn't understand it then. He was 21, and he thought about fighting in terms of weapons, the way everyone thinks about fighting before they've done enough of it, to understand that weapons are a specific and narrow category of tool, and that the world is full of things that are not weapons, and will absolutely do the job anyway if you understand what you are doing. He files the memory now as the most useful thing anyone has ever told him. He puts his hand on the coolant junction valve. The commander-grade unit arrives with 6 escorts and a signal jammer. Cole knows about the jammer because the radio goes dead. Not the depot's radio, which has been intermittent, but the coalition emergency channel, which has been consistent, and which goes from consistent to nothing in the space of a breath, which means they've brought a jammer, which means they've learned from the first 2 transmissions, which means they are adapting. Good. Cole has already stopped using the radio. He keys the remote operation panel for the Meridian Heavy Lift Unit Model 7, the forklift mech, fuel-celled, sitting in its dock at the north end of the depot floor, remote capable from the secondary panel near the back storage room where he positioned himself 8 minutes ago when he realized the jammer was coming. The forklift mech is not a weapon. It is a material handling unit designed to move loads up to 4 metric tons at speeds up to 12 kilometers per hour in confined industrial spaces. It weighs on its own approximately 1,800 kilograms, and it is remote capable, and it is between the hydraulic drums and the central corridor, and Cole has been waiting for the commander-grade unit to reach the position he has been watching on the depot's passive motion sensors, the ones that run on the station's backup power loop, independent of the jammer's frequency, because motion sensors don't need a signal to detect motion. When the commander's formation is in the corridor between rows 8 and 9, Cole opens the coolant junction valve fully and simultaneously activates the forklift mech. The Meridian Heavy Lift Unit Model 7 pushes the second 200-liter hydraulic drum, the one he repositioned 40 minutes ago, forward of its marked position, into the central corridor, in exactly the location where an overpressure event in the coolant lines would produce the maximum effect on the surrounding structure, into the corridor at 12 kilometers per hour. This is not fast, in absolute terms. It does not need to be fast. It needs to be in the right place at the right moment, which is what logistics is at its core, the right thing in the right place at the right time. The coolant line at 340 psi, fully opened at the junction, overpressurizes the section of pipe running through the wall between rows 8 and 9 in approximately 2.3 seconds. The wall section ruptures. A structure is a weight-bearing argument, and this particular section of wall has been making that argument for 6 years and is no longer equipped to continue it. The partial collapse that follows is not total. The depot is well built, the kind of well built that resists catastrophic failure at the expense of local failures. But local failure in this context is sufficient. The Meridian Heavy Lift Unit Model 7 does not survive the structural event. Cole notes this on the freight manifest. He adds it under equipment loss, non-recoverable, which is a real category on a Meridian supply form, and he fills it out correctly, because the paperwork is going to need to be filed eventually and there is no reason it should be wrong. The pipe shrapnel finds him while he is doing this. It is a piece of the ruptured coolant conduit, steel, jagged, approximately 30 centimeters, which is a specific enough dimension that he catalogs it the way he catalogs everything, by its properties. Because a man who does not know the properties of the things in his environment is working blind, and Cole does not work blind. It goes through his left side between the 8th and 9th ribs. He feels it the way you feel a thing that has happened before your nervous system has had time to render an opinion about it. As a fact first, then as information, then as a problem to be managed. He pulls it out. This takes 4 seconds. He wraps the wound with his shirt using his right hand and his teeth, because his left hand is occupied with the freight manifest, which he is not putting down, because the freight manifest is the record of everything that has happened here, and Cole is not in the habit of losing records. He wraps it tight. The shirt is cotton, which is not ideal, but it is what is there, and a supply specialist fights with what's there. He thinks with the particular clarity that arrives in the aftermath of a wound, when the body is deciding how seriously to take itself. The math says, I'm already dead. Fine. Dead men don't have to be careful. He files this thought as accurate. He moves on. The third transmission arrives, or it would arrive on the radio, but the jammer is still running, so it arrives on the emergency broadcast channel that bypasses the jammer, which Cole knows about because it is in the station technical manual, which he read, because he reads all the manuals of all the stations he works on, because that is what you do when other people's materials are your responsibility. This is lattice command to all Keth'Var units on Vantage Station Kilo 9. Sublevel 4 is reclassified. Reclassified. The labor unit is not behaving as a defender. It is not behaving as a combatant. The Keth'Var lattice has no category for what it is doing. I am telling you this so you understand. Do not engage it on the ground. Do not enter sublevel 4. Wait for orbital resolution. Cole listens to this. He listens to the word reclassified said twice, which is what you do when you want to make sure the people who are hearing you understand that the situation has changed in a way that they need to take seriously. He listens to no category for what it is doing, which is technically true and in a specific way flattering, though flattery is not the most immediately relevant thing. He listens to wait for orbital resolution, which is the part that matters, because orbital resolution means time, and time is what he has been buying, and the price of it is something he will account for later if there is a later, and he is becoming increasingly less certain about the later, but remains entirely certain about the now. The wound is bleeding. He can feel this in an abstract way, the way you feel a slow leak in a supply line, as a resource problem, not a crisis, until it becomes a crisis. He does not know exactly when it will become a crisis. He has some guesses. The guesses are not encouraging. He files them under problems to address sequentially and walks toward the storage room door. This is the last deliberate move he makes. He makes it because Priya is in that room, and whatever comes through the debris when the Keth'Var stop waiting for orbital resolution will have to reach him before it reaches her, and he is going to be between them regardless of his own condition, and this is not a tactical decision exactly. Or it is, but it is a tactical decision that was made 47 minutes ago when Arvind Sharma's hand went slack and does not require remaking. He gets to the door. He sits down against the frame, outside it between the room and what's left of the depot floor, and the sitting is not a choice exactly, his body having made the decision for him in the way that bodies make decisions when they have been managing themselves at the edge of their operational parameters for an extended period, and have reached the point where the management requires more active input than the management has been receiving. He is aware that sitting down may mean not standing up again under his own power. He notes this the way he notes all resource constraints, as a fact to be worked around. He has the Hilti fastener gun in his right hand. He has 4 cartridges in his right pocket, where he can reach them without looking. He has the freight manifest in his left hand with the pencil corrections in the margins, and the equipment loss notation at the bottom and the wrong quantities crossed out, and the right quantities written in, because the manifest is going to be wrong and it is his job to make it right, and that job does not stop because of the situation. He waits. The Coalition Rapid Response Team breaches Sublevel 4 at 0427. They are alerted by a distress signal filed through the Meridian Supply Group Freight Manifest Logistics System, the only network on Kilo 9 with partial connectivity to the Coalition Emergency Relay. Partial because it runs on a dedicated supply chain frequency that is not the same as the station's primary communication frequency, which the Keth'Var jammed, and not the same as the Coalition military frequency, which the Keth'Var also jammed, but which is also not the freight manifest frequency, because nobody thinks to jam the freight manifest frequency, because no one in the history of interspecies conflict has ever used the freight manifest frequency to call for help. Cole had 40 minutes between the first strike and the first entry team. He spent 14 of them rigging the mag rail. He spent 3 minutes on the ventilation access points. He spent approximately 8 minutes on coolant junction pre-positioning. He spent the remaining minutes on the freight manifest system. The signal is not technically a distress signal. It is a critical priority supply request, flagged with a 7 alpha emergency code that indicates a depot is operating below minimum safe resource levels and requires immediate resupply to maintain operational status. It is rerouted through 3 backup nodes in sequence, which is a routing path that only exists in the technical manual and which any freight coordinator with 11 years of logistics experience would know about and nobody else would. The critical priority flag on a 7 alpha code automatically escalates to coalition command oversight. It was in the manual. Cole read the manual. The Keth'Var Marine lieutenant who enters first will describe what he finds in his incident report, which will be distributed to the Coalition Consensus Council, the Keth'Var Dominion's formal grievance committee, and eventually to a number of xenobiological research institutions that will spend considerable time arguing about it. The report reads, in part, the lighting was compromised. We proceeded by helmet light. What we found was not a defended position, it was a solved problem. The Keth'Var units were not positioned as if they had been killed. They were positioned as if the environment itself had disagreed with their presence and taken corrective action. Freight containers, machinery, structural elements, chemical agents, and at least 2 remotely operated vehicles had been arranged, I can find no better word than arranged, into a sequence of events that required significant expertise in material logistics, structural dynamics, and the specific resource inventory of this sub-level. We did not find a last stand. We found a workplace. At the end of it, sitting against a storage room door, was a man with a piece of pipe missing from his side, holding a freight manifest with corrections in pencil and a fastener gun with 4 rounds he never fired. The Marine who reaches him first kneels and asks if he can hear them. Cole opens his eyes. His eyes are the same as they always are, focused, unhurried, already cataloging the situation. Manifests on the floor, he says. Row 12's going to need a full restock. He closes his eyes. Torin, the Valari medic, will give testimony to the Coalition Medical Tribunal 9 days later. His hands are still shaking, but steadier than they were. He will say, his cardiac output at the point of recovery was consistent with a species in terminal cascade. Blood loss approximating 38% of total volume. Core temperature 39.4 degrees. Heart rate when we reached him, 187 beats per minute, sustained. In my understanding of human physiology, this is not survivable as a prolonged state. I have asked my colleagues to explain what kept him ambulatory and tactically functional at this level of systemic compromise. They have given me 3 different answers. None of them fully satisfy me. I believe the correct answer is that he had not yet finished what he was doing, and his body was waiting for permission to stop. 11 days later, Cole Decker wakes up in a Coalition medical bay. The first thing he notices is the smell. Antiseptic and the recycled air nothing smell of deep space, which is different from the recycled air nothing smell of Kilo 9, in a way that he cannot immediately articulate, but which matters to him in the first 30 seconds of consciousness. Kilo 9 smelled like a place that had people in it who did specific work. This smells like a place where things are kept clean, because cleanliness is the work. He notes the distinction. He notes that he can note the distinction, which means his brain is at operational capacity, which is progress. Someone has left a blank freight manifest on the table next to his bed. Meridian Supply Group, standard issue, yellow plastic, identical to the one he was carrying when they found him. No items, no quantities, no corrections in pencil. He picks it up. He finds out about the grievance from a Coalition legal liaison, who arrives 3 hours after he wakes up, and who has the specific quality of someone delivering information they disagree with, while maintaining the professional neutrality of someone who has been told to maintain professional neutrality. The Keth'Var Dominion, she explains, has filed a formal complaint with the Consensus Council. The argument, as delivered by Ambassador Varan on behalf of the Dominion, is clean and legally coherent and wrong in the specific way that clean, legally coherent arguments can be wrong when they describe the correct facts in the service of the incorrect conclusion. The argument runs as follows. Cole Raymond Decker is a civilian logistics contractor. His employer, Meridian Supply Group, holds a non-combat designation under the Keth'Var Reach Treaty Protocols. His actions at Sublevel 4, Vantage Station Kilo 9, while resulting in the elimination of 3 Keth'Var tactical formations, were taken by a designated non-combatant. This constitutes an unlawful engagement under Protocol 7 of the Keth'Var Accords. Furthermore, the Keth'Var lattice's documented failure to model Cole's behavior represents a classified tactical disruption to Keth'Var military intelligence systems. Formally acknowledging a civilian's actions as militarily significant would require the coalition to reclassify all human logistics personnel as potential combatants under the treaty's threat assessment framework. This reclassification would trigger a mandatory review of 17 trade agreements and 4 border arrangements currently operating under the existing human labor caste designation. 2 coalition council members, she tells him, are supporting the censure. The math, she says, is clean. He listens to all of it, holding the blank freight manifest. What's the censure involve, he says. A formal notation in your contractor file. Removal from coalition contracted work for a period of 18 months. A suppressed incident report. Suppressed. The Dominion's preference is that the events at Kilo 9 not be used as the basis for any revision to Keth'Var tactical assessment of human civilian personnel. Cole looks at the blank manifest. He thinks about everything that is not written on it. I'll be at the council session, he says. He walks into the consensus council chamber 11 days after they found him sitting against a storage room door, with 38% of his blood already somewhere outside his body. He walks in civilian clothes, dark trousers, Meridian contractor jacket, the same jacket he always wears because he has 3 of them and they are identical, except this one has a coffee stain on the left cuff from a cup he set down wrong on the freight desk at Kilo 9 6 weeks ago, which he noticed and did not address because addressing a coffee stain on a contractor jacket is not a good use of operational time. His left side moves slightly wrong. He does not accommodate for it. He walks at the same pace he always walks, which is the pace of someone who knows where they are going and is neither hurrying nor delaying. He is carrying the blank freight manifest. The council members who haven't met him are looking for something specific, the kind of specific that the word military produces when you say it to yourself before a person enters a room. They see a man in his 40s with a fused left hand and a coffee stain and a piece of paper. They recalibrate. They are recalibrating toward the wrong conclusion, and he can see them doing it. And he does not correct them, because the corrections are going to come from the other direction. He stands at the address position. He doesn't look at his notes because he doesn't have notes. I'm not going to argue the treaty protocol with you, he says. You've read it more carefully than I have, and you know the language better than I do. What I'll tell you is what I told the Keth'Var entry team when their lattice opened the channel and told me my survival probability was 4.3%. He pauses. He is not pausing for effect. He is pausing because he is being precise. I didn't argue with it. I thought it was probably right. A beat. I just didn't think it mattered. He puts the blank manifest on the table in front of him, not as a gesture. He puts it down because he is done holding it. You can have 4.3% survival probability and still win, if what you're protecting is worth more than what you're risking. That's not a military doctrine, that's not even a human thing specifically, that's just arithmetic with different inputs. The Keth'Var fed themselves into a machine that knew how to solve rational actors. I wasn't being rational. I wasn't trying to survive. I was trying to make sure a 9-year-old girl didn't have to look at what happened to her father while it was still on the floor. That's the whole brief. That was the entire operation. You want to censure me for that, I'll sign the form. I've signed worse paperwork. But I want to be clear about what you're censuring. Not a weapons violation, not a protocol breach. You're censuring a man for refusing to let a child see something terrible. You write that down and you put your name on it, and let's see how that reads in 30 years. He picks up the manifest. He walks out. Ambassador Voron catches him in the corridor. This is not unexpected. Voron is a diplomat, and diplomats understand corridors. They understand that corridors are where the real conversations happen, after the formal ones have established what each party is pretending to want, so that the corridor conversation can establish what each party actually needs. Voron explains carefully that this is not about Cole personally. It is about architecture. It is about the treaties that hold the coalition together, the agreements that prevent a dozen ongoing tensions from becoming actual conflicts. The careful balance that 17 trade agreements represent when you add up the economic weight of all the species that depend on them. He explains that Cole's actions, however understandable on a personal level, have created a political problem that has a clean solution and a messy solution, and the Dominion's strong preference is the clean one. Cole listens to all of it, leaning against the corridor wall, looking at the wall rather than at Voran, because looking at a wall is sometimes more clarifying than looking at a person. "Here's the thing," he says. Voran waits. "I did what I did with a freight inventory, an angle grinder, and some pipe fittings. I had 40 minutes and a clipboard." He is quiet for a moment. "I'm telling you this not to frighten you. I'm telling you this so you understand what the actual ceiling is when you go back to your lattice and ask it to model us properly this time." He pushes off the wall. "Good luck with that." He walks away. He doesn't look back. Voran stands in the corridor for 11 seconds before moving again. His aide, who logs everything because aides log everything, notes the duration and the expression. The aide will describe it later as the expression of a person who has heard a locked door open. Not necessarily a door that should remain locked. Just a door whose existence they had not, until now, fully accounted for. That evening, Cole takes the lift to the medical ward on the station's 3rd residential level, where Priya Sharma is being held for observation and psychological evaluation, pending transfer to a Coalition Family Services placement, which will take 3 to 6 weeks, during which she will be in the care of the medical staff who are competent and kind and entirely unknown to her. He sits in the chair next to her bed. The chair is the standard-issue Coalition medical chair, slightly too upright, designed for a range of body types that does not include human bodies specifically, which means the back hits him at the wrong point, and he has to shift slightly to be comfortable, which he does without comment because the chair's shortcomings are not the relevant thing. His left side is less wrong than it was this morning. He considers this progress. Priya is awake. She is watching him with the direct evaluating attention of a child who has spent 11 days being careful around adults and has decided, provisionally, that this one can be looked at directly. Neither of them says anything for a while. Cole looks at the ceiling. He has been looking at ceilings for 11 days, hospital ceilings, council chamber ceilings, corridor ceilings, the way a man looks at something he has been meaning to address and hasn't had the right moment for. He has been carrying a sentence for 11 days that has not been finished since Arvind Sharma's hand went slack in his at 0314 on the morning that everything happened, and the sentence belongs to the ceiling of this room as much as it belongs anywhere. He says it quietly to no one in particular, in the same tone he uses for manifest corrections, the tone of a man getting the record right. Don't let her see them. Priya doesn't know what it means. She doesn't ask. She watches him, and after a moment she asks the question she has apparently been working up to, which is a real question, which she asks with the seriousness it deserves. "Are you going to be okay?" Cole Decker considers this question with the attention he gives all logistical questions, actually not performatively, running the inventory, accounting for the variables, comparing the projected outcome against the available resources. He takes a breath. His left side comments on this. He notes the comment and does not respond to it. "I've got a row 12 restock to supervise," he says. "I'll worry about okay after that." Priya looks at the ceiling too for a while, in the way that children look at things an adult has just looked at, to see what the adult saw. She doesn't find anything there. Cole's eyes are closed. The room is quiet. The manifest is on the table by his chair, still blank. He'll fill it in tomorrow. He always fills them in eventually. The corrections always get made. The record always gets right. That is the whole job. That is all it has ever been.